In the years when the descendants of Jacob multiplied beyond counting, Egypt became both their refuge and their prison. What began as a land of provision slowly transformed into a place of fear, where blessing was reinterpreted as threat. A new Pharaoh rose to power, one who did not remember Joseph, and with that forgetting came oppression. The Hebrews were forced into labor beneath the burning sun, their strength spent building cities they would never own, their cries rising silently into the heavens. Fear ruled Egypt, and fear gave birth to cruelty. Pharaoh decreed that every Hebrew male child be cast into the Nile, hoping to extinguish a people by drowning their future. It was into this world that Moses was born, at a time when survival itself was an act of defiance. His mother saw something in him that outweighed the danger he carried simply by living. For 3 months she hid him, measuring each breath against the sound of soldiers' footsteps, until concealment was no longer possible. With trembling resolve, she placed him in a basket of reeds, sealing it with pitch, and set him among the tall grasses by the river's edge. It was not an act of abandonment, but of surrender, a quiet trust that the same God who formed the child might also guide the waters. The Nile, a symbol of death to many Hebrew children, became the path of preservation for Moses. Pharaoh's daughter discovered the basket and, moved by compassion, drew the child from the water. Though she knew he was Hebrew, she chose mercy over policy. Moses was raised in Pharaoh's household, educated in the wisdom of Egypt, surrounded by wealth, power, and the language of gods made by human hands. Yet beneath the fine linen and royal instruction, his true identity remained hidden, like an ember buried beneath ash. As Moses grew, he became aware of the tension within himself. He was both Hebrew and Egyptian, belonging fully to neither world. He saw the suffering of his people, the weight of their chains, and something stirred in him that education could not silence. One day, when he witnessed an Egyptian beating a Hebrew slave, Moses acted in anger and impulse, striking the man down and hiding his body in the sand. What he believed was a moment of justice became instead the turning point of his life. His action, born of outrage but lacking wisdom, exposed him to judgment from both sides. When Pharaoh sought his life, Moses fled, leaving behind the palace he never truly belonged to. Moses crossed into Midian as a fugitive, stripped of status and certainty. There, far from Egypt's splendor, he encountered a different rhythm of life. He defended the daughters of Jethro at a well, not as a prince but as a stranger, and soon found himself welcomed into a family, married, and tending sheep. The man who once walked marble halls now walked rocky paths, guiding animals that resisted direction. Years passed in the wilderness, seasons marked not by ambition but by repetition. It was here, in obscurity, that Moses learned patience, humility, and the weight of responsibility without recognition. The wilderness was not merely a place of exile, it was a place of formation. Moses, once quick to act, learned to wait. Once confident in strength, he learned dependence. The desert stripped away illusions, revealing a man no longer defined by palace or rage, but by endurance. The silence of Midian taught him what Egypt never could, that leadership forged in haste breaks easily, but leadership shaped in stillness carries depth. One day, as Moses led his flock beyond familiar ground, he came upon a sight that defied reason. A bush burned with fire yet was not consumed. Drawn by curiosity, he approached, and from the flame came a voice that called his name. The voice spoke not with thunder but with authority that required no force. Moses was commanded to remove his sandals, for the ground beneath him was holy, not because of location, but because of presence. In that moment, the God of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob revealed himself not as distant memory, but as living reality. The voice spoke of suffering heard, of cries known, and of a mission that would once have stirred Moses' pride but now awakened his fear. He was to return to Egypt, to stand before Pharaoh, and to lead the Israelites out of bondage. Moses, shaped by years of humility, no longer rushed forward. He questioned, doubted, and resisted. He spoke of inadequacy, of faltering speech, of fear. Yet each objection was met not with condemnation, but reassurance. God did not deny Moses' weakness, he declared his own sufficiency. Moses was given a name to carry, not one shaped by human language, but by eternal existence. The God who sent him was not bound by time or circumstance. He was the one who is, the one who remains. Moses was also given signs, not as tools of power, but as confirmations of divine authority. Even so, the calling did not erase Moses' fear. Obedience rarely removes uncertainty, it simply chooses faith over it. When Moses returned to Egypt, he did not arrive as a conqueror but as a servant of a greater will. He faced suspicion from his own people and resistance from Pharaoh. Each step forward was met with tension. Each word spoken carried consequence. The man who once fled Egypt returned changed, no longer driven by impulse, but by obedience. His authority no longer came from upbringing or position, but from alignment with God's purpose. Before the plagues, before the crossing of the sea, before the songs of deliverance, there was this quieter story of preparation. A child spared by courage, a prince humbled by exile, a shepherd transformed by encounter. Moses did not emerge fully formed at the burning bush. He arrived shaped by years of silence, failure, and waiting. His calling was not sudden promotion, but the unveiling of a purpose long in the making. Moses' life before the Exodus reveals that deliverance begins long before chains are broken. It begins in hidden faithfulness, in seasons that appear unproductive, in obedience that feels small and costly. God's work often unfolds slowly, weaving preparation into ordinary days, shaping leaders when no audience watches. The path from palace to pasture was not a detour, but a necessary descent, one that refined Moses' character so he could bear the weight of what lay ahead. In the unfolding of Moses' early life, power is redefined, not as control, but as surrender. Strength is revealed not in impulse, but in restraint. Calling is shown not as instant clarity, but as a gradual alignment between human weakness and divine purpose. Long before the sea would part, Moses learned to stand still. Long before a nation would follow him, he learned to follow God alone. And in that quiet obedience, the foundation was laid for a deliverance that would echo through history not as the triumph of a man, but as the faithfulness of a God who prepares his servants long before he reveals his wonders.